Hello and a very warm welcome back to the garden, although we're here at a different garden, and I'm here with Harrison from We're the Earth. And could you just tell us which garden we're in?
Sure. So we're at one of the Worthy Earth sites in Hampshire. We're
Yeah.
at Dummerdown Farm at the moment. This is the second site that we ever started, and it's considered to be our HQ.
And I want to chat to you today a bit about, find out a bit more about your mission, because I think what you and your brother Lawrence are doing is quite exciting. Because it's not often that you see young people starting something more than just a market garden. Very often you see someone starting a market garden, but I feel like you have kind of quite a ambitious drive, vision, and I just wanted to kind of hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. What is your drive and ambition, and where did it come from?
Sure. I mean, we first started market gardening in order to just try and find a way of enriching our lives and the lives of local people. But we realised in our first growing season that being able to support the lives of a couple or three people on a market garden is really tough going when it's just selling veg boxes and selling vegetables.
And you mean support as in financially?
Yeah, to financially have a living selling veg only is quite a challenging way to sort of make it work.
Yeah.
And so since then we've been exploring ways in which we can actually reinvent the role of the kitchen gardener or the market gardener that can find value in this current social climate.
So what is this reinvention? What kind of things are you learning? Could you maybe give me a couple of examples? Because you don't just have this, you've got other setups as well.
Exactly. So we've got a few different projects going at Worthy Earth at the moment. We have market gardens like this that is relying just on the sale of vegetables, but we also have found a way to sort of sell the service of growing vegetables to estates, farm shops, restaurants that may want a constant supply of veg all year round. And we're essentially coming in as gardeners and delivering the promise of year-round veg, but sort of working out a way to get a salary for doing that, just as an ordinary gardener would do if they were working in the grounds of an estate. We're the kitchen gardeners that come in and we grow the vegetables for use on the estate and in restaurants and cafes and farm shops and the like.
So is that the case for Blenheim then?
Yeah.
And how did that happen?
Well, I had a chance visit to go to Blenheim Palace ahead of an autumn festival that they were doing. A friend of mine does catering there, and she took me along for a meeting, and there happened to be the directors there at that meeting, and we were sat in the walled garden, this beautiful historic walled garden at Blenheim, and there wasn't really any vegetables being grown there at all, which was
I know, it's
quite
like a walled garden is like begging for something.
Yeah. And so we were there discussing catering for this autumn event, and I just kind of cheekily said, how can you do a harvest festival if you don't grow any of your own produce? And they were like, well, that's kind of fair enough, and maybe, if you send us in some sort of ideas or a proposal, then maybe we can look into, getting you guys in to actually run a kitchen garden that we can then use the produce for our harvest festival and for our catering. And a few months later, we were in there. We were laying the groundworks for a no-dig kitchen garden.
So if I understand it correctly, they essentially contract you. They pay you like a annual sum or whatever to do a service of running a successful kitchen garden.
Exactly.
And that is totally different to how a lot of market gardens set up, where it's like CSA and they're trying to sell shares or veg boxes or something.
Yeah.
And so, for me, the immediate benefit of that is security.
Yeah.
Particularly because I think there's a couple of things that I think are the hardest for people wanting to start a market garden. The first one is obviously kind of budget, and not just budget of setting up, but then once you set up, you have a few months before you're at full production.
Mm-hmm.
So you've also got to account for that.
Yeah.
And the other challenge is actually accessing land. But I feel like that you've found land and you've got the safety. My question is there any incentive, or is there something where if you perform particularly well, can you earn more from that, or is it just a set amount, or do they say hey, you can have this patch, just is there any incentive? Because my only danger is, say if I had an estate or
Yeah.
something, and I wanted to bring on a gardener, and I gave them, like 30 grand a year or something, and then a budget to work with, like this is a garden budget. My worry is that they might become complacent, and
Sure.
so how does that work
Yeah,
with
I
you
mean,
guys? Because look, you're a very honest fellow, and
Yeah.
but some people do take advantage of that, and I'm just thinking, are there any ways to mitigate that?
Sure. I mean, we're constantly under pressure to deliver the promises that we said that we would when we took on this mission at Blenheim, and other estates that have asked us to do a similar thing. We try and make sure that what we get paid, we can deliver very similar amount of value of vegetables over the course of the year. And if we don't, then obviously our position gets called into question. We also recognise, though, that we bring a lot more value than just the value of the vegetables themselves. So we run school visits and education sessions. We help with other events. We also help promote the kind of sustainable vision of certain places.
Exactly. Yeah, you're like kind of essentially improving the brand image or brand identity by.
Exactly. So we're constantly under pressure. We're not resting on our laurels. We're not sitting back and saying, we've got a great gig and therefore we don't have to try. It's very much the opposite of that. In fact, we have a lot of pressure that a lot of other market gardeners feel. We grew up in the climate, or at least we cut our teeth in the climate of having to make our wages from the sale of vegetables, and we're applying that now to estates.
So essentially, the way that works is it like through the year everything is weighed and you gather the data of what comes out, and then that is like then works on the whether if you grow £30,000 whatever quantity worth of vegetables, is that at wholesale price, or is that at high quality organic veg price? And I guess these are just different things to.
Yeah. I mean, we've been calculating it based on a similar prices to Riverford, the organic wholesale price list. We cross-reference various other places to give a price of what our veg is. We then upload everything onto a spreadsheet weekly, the harvest that we've actually given to the kitchens. The way that it works at Blenheim, if I can be honest here, is that our salary essentially gets pulled out of the catering budget. So the chefs who, and this is what's I think most interesting about it, the chefs that are most used to cooking veg that's only coming plastic wrapped, the ease of it being pre-washed, they're suddenly having to instead buy into the idea that it's coming from the kitchen garden.
Coming from the soil.
It's coming from the soil, so it might
earth.
have a
Worthy
bit of mud on it. But yeah, we're essentially, they're incentivized to use as much of the produce as they possibly can because they've got a fixed line on their budget. And their veg is coming in free of charge to them. Essentially.
That's a really interesting way of thinking about it. It's essentially they're whatever we can. It's almost because it's budget and that's allocated. They might as well make the most of what's been homegrown, and yes, I might have to wash it a bit more. But the other thing is because I know some of your sites as well also supply pubs and other things. So. What is the chef's role in terms of helping you decide what to grow? How influenced are you by chefs, or do you try and work with chefs who are hey, we wanna work with the seasons, and I want to put my trust into you, the gardener, who is knowledgeable, and I want to essentially respond to whatever is available?
Yeah, I mean that's the dream, to work with open-minded chefs that are willing to cook with the seasons, to base their menu not around what they think will sell best at that certain time of year, but to base it on what's available and therefore be nimble and quick on the feet. But somewhere like Blenheim, that is quite a commercially minded place, it can't always think like that. So you have to make some compromises. We over the winter we come up with a produce plan with the chefs, and then we just try and actualise that over the course of the season. Obviously, sometimes things go out the window, and say your potato crop gets blight, and you swap those beds around for another crop. You might have to, switch some things around. But essentially, we're trying to create a cultural shift, really, with chefs that work in institutions or restaurants and cafes. That instead of thinking about, okay, this is what I want the menu to be, and then I'm going to buy all this produce, regardless of if it's in season or local. Instead, just thinking, let's put local food at the heart and then make a menu around that.
And what's quite prominent here I've seen is edible flowers.
Yeah.
And is that because edible flowers are quite high value for you? Are there like specific things, especially if someone is setting up and maybe they don't have like a contract or something, but are there specific categories that perhaps earn more per square meter or earn more per hour of input that you'd recommend?
Yeah, I mean, we've been learning over the years and taking cues from various other market gardeners that viewers are probably aware of: Richard Perkins, John Martin Fortier, Elliot Coleman out in the States. We're finding ways of
legends.
Yeah, their manuals have guided us. We've also been guided by what we've grown in the past and what's worked really well. We focus mostly on leafy greens, salads, edible flowers, and cut flowers have become a big part of our offering as well. Not only do they add great colour to the garden, but they're also great things to add to a vibrant dish. So yeah, mixing them in salad mixes as well.
Yeah,
makes your salad mix stand out from others.
Yeah, not just 50 shades of green.
Exactly. Yeah. So just trying to add colour to the plate and what you're offering is key as well.
And cut flowers, do you feel like, because of their value, and I feel like that's something that a lot of market gardeners are starting to also include, and a lot of them happen to be edible, which is useful, but some of them aren't or just don't taste the best. But do you think cut flowers can be a little bit of a leeway, which means that you can grow other things that may be lower value but increases your offering? Because if you've got a veg box scheme, the last thing you want is to only have 4 or 5 things.
Yeah.
You want to be able to offer some of like the staples like onions and stuff. But the thing with onions is that they're actually so really cheap to buy in like organic wholesale. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, we tend to steer away from the things that are just really cheap to get on wholesale. And when it comes to giving out veg boxes, we just try and offer at least 8 to 12 items, depending on the season, generous portions of which, and we just try and sell them relatively affordably to the people that are around us. But the cut flowers, because they can be grown alongside or in beds with veg in, they offer just a really good way of being able to, have another revenue stream on top of the veg as well.
And just back to kind of like your vision with the earth, could you tell us a bit about like detail about your model and what you're hoping to aspire to? What's getting you up every morning? And because it feels like you've already done some quite amazing things, and I'm just excited to see like where you want to take it.
Yeah, well, I think we're part of a kind of cultural shift that's been many years in the making, and we're just riding it as well. But there's, I guess, after the war in the UK, a lot of our market gardens, kitchen gardens, became something that wasn't considered to be economically viable anymore, and therefore a lot of the kitchen gardeners that worked on estates or even had market gardens, they just became sort of a bit of an extinct species. And obviously, we're finding, and across the last 10 years, that's been picking up again. We are recognising that there's lots of empty spaces in walled gardens that across the estates or at farms that have not been used for many years, and we're finding ways of being able to come in and offer a service and actually give somebody a very meaningful job in the process, and also improve the lives of that local area. We're not trying to create one large market garden somewhere. We want to create lots of different small ones that serve the needs of those local areas, and we can give somebody or 2 people a job in the process that's secure. And I mean, we've been, for example, welcoming gardeners that come from a more sort of like groundskeeper background, let's say, that want to transition to growing vegetables but don't want to take the plunge of doing their own market garden on their own, but they can come and join our team. And we're finding opportunities to employ people in estate kitchen gardens, creating market gardens for the likes of farm shops and restaurants that just want their own market garden that they can rely on in the future. We're just trying to repopularise and actually make economically viable again this idea that you can be a kitchen gardener and that has social value.
Do you think food is undervalued?
Yeah, I do, because our lives are deprived if only the food that we like has no connection to us. I think that our lives are enriched, therefore, if we have a connection to where our food comes from, and we know people that are involved in growing food. Growing up, Lawrence and I, my brother, we had no connection to anyone in our local area that was a farmer or growing food. I mean, we knew of some farmers, but there's a real lack of connection when it comes to it, and therefore I think there should be job roles available for people to be growing food in this particular kind of way, and that will rely on a cultural shift that can actually put value onto that.
What if there's someone who has spotted that there's like a bit of a derelict walled garden or a space, or they know of maybe like a chef who works at an interesting country estate, and there's like potential and they're kind of passionate about it? Do you kind of like allow people to get in touch with you, and do you like try and like consult to help them with how to approach putting a proposal, or do you say, hey, come and join the Worthy Earth community and we'll work with you to make it possible? Like,
Sure. Well, I mean, we've kind of got an area that we work in Oxfordshire, Hampshire, Surrey, and that's kind of our little area at the moment. So we would welcome helping other people to find opportunities in their area as well. Be that, getting in touch with estates or getting in touch with farms that happen to have these kind of underused growing spaces. You know, the amount of walled gardens, thousands around the country, just sitting empty at the moment is just
criminal. I
it
think,
is criminal,
to be honest.
It does it
Ethically criminal.
Yeah.
Maybe not legally, but you know.
Yeah, no, well, absolutely. These spaces were constructed for the intensive growing of fruits and vegetables, and they're much easier to restore and bring to life again than for us to create a new one somewhere. So I think we should definitely encourage people to get in touch with farms, encourage people to get in touch with estates, especially when it does feel like we're at a tipping point in culture at the moment where people are becoming more interested in local food, regenerative food systems, sustainability, environmentalism. Obviously, all of this, it's a big wave that we're going through at the moment. This essentially means just ways of living better, and I think that estates that have a visitor element to them, that are trying to become more relevant in this day and age, would definitely enjoy the idea of bringing in some people that want to breathe new life into these growing spaces, because a lot of people lack the skills in management to be able to make that happen.
Well, it actually reminds me of a place that I visited near, in Yorkshire, called Raithwaite Sands End, and it is a really kind of really nice posh country estate, and they had some space, and there's a guy called Jamie. You might actually recognise him as Nettles and Petals on Instagram. Yeah. But he got into it because they had this space and they wanted to create a bit of a market garden, and because obviously, whether you call it greenwashing or not, I think it's a great opportunity, and I think it's a real interesting display of an estate that actually is willing to put money down on the table, because it's I think sometimes people are, they're just doing that to look better. I'm like, I don't care, because they're actually making a really good motive forward, and I also think that that's actually not a fair representation. I feel like maybe there's a bit of jealousy, but I remember visiting there and seeing the market garden, and they were like, actually, we're going to put it in. It was quite a tough situation. I think it was either north or west facing or something like that, and it was at the top of the car park. But the reason why is because they wanted when everyone to arrive to actually see that is where the vegetables are grown, and so they actually placed it prominently for all of the visitors to then come to this place and see this market garden. And I'm just it's really good to
inspiring.
See.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing worse than going to a walled garden and seeing it's completely empty. And therefore, the opposite of that, if you're a visitor going somewhere and you see that it's being worked and that it's full of life, this has such a positive impact on you. And, going back to the greenwashing, I don't think that it's necessarily greenwashing when it's also bringing in human labour. I mean, essentially, this is about graft and about you know, like
Not tomato graft.
you know, we're out here, and the people that work with us are, grafting day in day out to grow vegetables. We're not sat on a computer selling off sort of carbon credits, like, we're like
And it's that satisfaction. It's that I think a lot of people feel lost and they want a purpose. And I think for so many people, I think like for society, we've lost that connection with the land, and that was what brought so much purpose and connection to people and connection with the seasons. And I think that is maybe why part of the cultural shift is that so many people are thinking, actually, I want to start a market garden, because like instinctively they just feel that there's, even if they haven't kind of worked it out, but it is that kind of connection, and it's that display of hope. And I'd say that like the question that I like to ask people is, because it can be quite like doom and gloom, but are you hopeful?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm equally not waiting for anyone to make the change for me or us. This is what Worthy Earth, I guess, is trying to say in its actions, is that we don't need to wait for like a better version of the world to be created, that we can just do it, and that we can find ways of actually engendering that. Obviously, we've come from a certain set of circumstances which have enabled us to do what we do, and that's not necessarily the path or journey that everyone can take, but we want to show that this is possible, and that there are many other versions of what we're doing possible to everyone else as well.
Quite right. Yeah, quite right. Is there anything else you want to share?
Well, I mean, not that immediately comes to mind. I mean, I think there is a real link here that could be explored, I think, between chefs that are becoming interested in cooking, and the link with the market gardening movement, as it were, because essentially part of the reason why these vegetables have become not staples in people's diets is because people have lost the ability to sort of like understand how to cook them and use them properly, due to many decades of just like convenient food. And therefore, I think there's an alliance there between chefs and market gardeners that needs to be shored up, and I find that a really exciting avenue for the future. And I know that you're doing that yourself with your friend Sam, obviously. So yeah,
I've just like had a thought, actually. It could actually, like some towns have like partnered with a town in France or something.
Yeah.
What if there's like a market garden that is essentially partnered with a restaurant, and it doesn't have to be this formal thing, but it's saying, hey, what I want to do is like maybe a few times a season, some of the chefs or like trainee chefs or something come for a day to the market garden and help out and learn, and then maybe like every so often on the menu there's like the like local ingredient of the week, and there's more of a collaboration, rather, because I think very often we can get like caught in it to everything having to be financial. And I think sometimes looking beyond that and thinking about the long term, because I think the finance can very often cause narrow vision, but it's like if you focus on nurturing those relationships, I think the financial side, which the way that the culture is, that's how society kind of works. We need to pay our bills, we need to pay our rent and stuff, but I think that there could be something interesting there.
Definitely. I mean, we do rely on actually labour that comes from chefs that are volunteering a bit of their time, like junior chefs that want to come see where the vegetables that end up in the kitchen is coming from. They come and help us out for half a day, help us with the harvest. There's a ways of sharing skills that doesn't have to be purely financial, and that's what makes the project work in the long term.
I'll tell you something that Sam and I are wanting to do. It's in the future to set up some kind of like traineeship or apprenticeship that is equally split between the growing and the working with the produce. So it's not like you go down and you go the chefy route, or you go down the producing or farming route. You like learn both, and then you can choose which direction you go if you want to go in a particular direction. But at least like the from like plot to plate. Because I think that's it. There's so many chefs that are just like a good chef knows that the quality of their food is limited by the quality of the ingredients, and then getting them involved. And I think it's hugely inspiring. And thank you for like the work that you guys are doing, because I think it's helping just as you say, there's a change and it's pushing everything
Yeah.
in the right direction.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's all a huge group effort of people that intuitively want to create a slightly better version of the world, you know, and that we're just doing our best to make that happen, and supported by everyone else that's doing the good things, even when the going gets tough. Like, it's good to remember that we're part of something bigger,
Absolutely.
and going in the right direction.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, man.
Cheers, Hugh.
Cheers.